Reddit by Planet Reddit. What is something you've heard someone say that actually left you speechless? We were in a grocery store, starting to head down an aisle, when a man stopped us and said, "I'd recommend avoiding this aisle. My wife just cut a wicked fart." His candor left us speechless. Sure enough, even in the next aisle, we could smell it wafting in our direction. My first reaction is that he did it and he blamed his wife on it, and that he does this often. You make a valid point. I wondered about that, too, especially since his wife looked the other way as he spoke. Absolute king. Babe, you know how much I love you, so don't be mad, but I've been sleeping with your cousin for a while and we are in love and I'm gonna need you to support me on this. Also, if her husband calls, tell him she is with you. Needless to say, the speechless portion didn't last too long. Want to mention this was months ago and the situation has been handled. They are both dead to me. They are both dead. Oh my god, WTF. To me. Oh okay. That makes sense. And to everyone else. Do you finger yourself? Random friend of a former roommate. 10 minutes after meeting me. I have a similar one. A longtime friend of mine introduced me to his girlfriend for the first time and the first thing that she says to me is, "So, when did you lose your virginity?" I had a coworker ask me on his second day, "So, how many girls have you fucked?" He was fired a few weeks later. Not for that, but for sexually harassing a female colleague. He was fired a few weeks later. Not for that, but for sexually harassing a female colleague. I have to say this was absolutely not an unexpected development. Let me guess, you probably think fossils are real, don't you? What? Whoa, this happened to me too. 10th grade, age 15 or 16. A girl in my art class said, "I don't believe in dinosaurs." I was about to explain, fossils, all of the evidence, then realized, you can't fix stupid. I have an ex who didn't believe dinosaurs existed. The devil put them on earth to trick people into thinking they existed. His family also loved Kent Hovind. I just want to speak up as someone who used to believe this. It's not stupidity, it's religious indoctrination. If you encounter someone like this again, you can either disengage or challenge them with questions. But please don't dismiss us as unfixably stupid. Me, and just a heads up, we close at 5 PM today. Customer, no you don't. Me, I really hope they waved their hand like a Jedi and you went along with it. What, you think you're some kind of Jedi? Waving your hand around like that? I'm a Toydarian. Mind tricks don't work on me, only money. Remember when it was my mind is strong enough to resist and not Jedi tricks don't work on my species for some fucking reason. Looking at your phone at work is the same thing as showing up to work drunk or on drugs. Time thief. Time thief. Time theft is real. Right now, for example, I should be working. That's procrastinating. I was talking to someone about something unimportant and I jokingly said to my friend, "What could you possibly hate about me?" Well, she goes on this long behind rant saying that I'm overdramatic, hypocritical, arrogant, and a political stereotype. I don't even know what she meant with half of the things she was saying. She said I was a hypocrite for not liking anime. Wait, your friend said this? There's a reason we're more distant now. She's changed a lot recently. She's always trying to act edgy and intimidating. Doom music starts. We have a population of 330 million. If everyone just gave each other $1, we'd all be millionaires. Bimbo co-worker I had. It hurts my brain to think about how that would work. A lot of her comments hurt a lot of our brains. Haha. Bimbo co-worker or pyramid scheme startup. The reason I think I'm always right is because I always am. The guy was saying this while trying to argue that someone was wrong to call him arrogant. If I can't be right, then why face reality? A harmful mindset. Thanks to denial, I'm immortal. When I was in high school, this kid called me arrogant. My off-the-cuff response was, "I'm not arrogant. I'm just better than you." Me, was an accident and my dad did not want to have kids. I was not going to get an abortion, so we got divorced. Something like that. I was 10. She always told me that they got married too young and wanted different things out of life. Don't eavesdrop on your mom's conversations with her friends drinking wine. Explains why my dad blows me off most of his weekends, and when I'm there, I'm just kinda there and he ignores me. Grow to do wonderful things in your life, and when your father shows up to share a piece of your success, ignore him. I did that. Best feeling ever. To be proud of yourself and your accomplishments and then just ignore the people that pretend to have had contributed. You don't know how glad I am to hear that. She probably let herself get abused when she was younger. Honestly, I can't tell you how many times I have heard someone say that. It seriously pisses me off. It's one of the many reasons I'm no longer a counselor. This kind of thing began to wear me down. I'm not surprised. I overheard a work colleague say it to someone else. I walked out before I got myself sacked by retaliating. As someone who got herself abused, this really pisses me off. It's not a choice. And yes, sometimes mentally we don't realize how bad it is and stay, but it's still not my fucking fault someone else decided to hit and use me. I'm usually left speechless after my dad drops a proper dad joke on my unsuspecting behind. I'll just give him a look that tells him I am eternally disappointed in his sense of humor, but also that what he said was kinda funny, without wanting to recognize that it was kinda funny. Do you know what makes a joke a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. Otherwise it'd just be a faux pas. Haha, as a father of a son that gives those looks, I think you should respect your dad and laugh at his jokes. It hurts when the product of your union of love thinks you're not funny, lol. Can't you just get over it already? It's not like it's your mom or dad. You need to learn how to quit making everything about you and realize that I have problems too. An ex. Angry that I cancelled date night to go to the hospital while my grandpa was dying. Edit. Clarifying that ex and I are both dudes. You need to learn how to quit making everything about you and realize that I have problems too. Oh my god. The irony. If there's one person who makes everything about themselves without acknowledging other people's problems, it's definitely the guy yelling at his boyfriend because he thinks some date night is more important than his dying grandfather. The irony gets better / more terrifying. He was in school for psychology and his dream job was trauma therapist. That doesn't even surprise me. The biggest asset I know is in school to be a substance abuse counselor. You teach people how to treat you. Mind-blowing moment of realization that if I continued to say I suck and that no one should trust me with things, they will start to believe me and treat me as such. I keep telling something similar to this to people. You aren't getting any respect if you doesn't respect yourself, and people will treat you the way you let them. I literally hate the person I am right now. Edit. Genuine, kind, caring person. Really left me speechless. Depression's a hell of a drug. Man, thought you were talking about me. At times my depression hits and I hate everything about myself. I feel like I'm not a good enough mom or wife. Was at a small, shitty dinner that's gone now. Two older couples were at the next booth over, talking about how one couple was trying to sell their house. They were complaining that no one would want to buy it, since a black family moved in next door. The other guy said it's simple. When you're walking in the yard with potential buyers and you see the neighbor, ask him how the flowers are coming along this year. They'll just bet him he's the gardener. Double quote. Jesus Christ, that sucked up. That's asinine. Dare I ask what state this was in? In my great state of PA. I live in a community that's almost 50/50 split black and white. It honestly makes me happy and I thought things were all hunky-dory. Welp, I started talking to this old white guy who always sits on his porch no shirt, baking in the afternoon sun. It's always this type of guy, isn't it? His porch directly faced a side lawn across the street of a home owned by a black guy. We live right next door to the black dude. He was nice. We met him a couple times. He worked for the municipal department and that's all we knew. Well, black dude wasn't great about mowing his lawn. That's okay. We weren't great about ours either. We're all young, working hard outside the home. Busy, old shirtless white guy, remember him? Once proudly told me that he chastised his young black neighbor for neglecting his lawn, calling it a nigger lawn. He said those exact words to his neighbor and was proud of it too. Well, black dude up and left. Just never came back. House became repossessed. Grass grew. Door got ripped off its hinges. Window smashed. Inside of the home filled up with mold. The entire lawn has been dug up and is now a mud pit. It attempts to place sump pumps and salvage the house. Work has been moving very slowly. I don't like people. What the yuck is wrong with people? A friend and I were in a store buying mannequins for our thrifting business. The guy who owns the store pointed to a specific mannequin and said, "This one has great jits, not like my sister-in-law's. She breastfed her baby and one day she whipped them out to feed him and they look like fried eggs. Ruined forever. My wife is in her 70s and she has perky little jits because she didn't breastfeed our kids." Then he went on to tell us how his daughter breastfeeds and how great it is for babies. WTF. We had known this guy all of 30 seconds before he unloaded this breastfeeding sigh on us. To be fair, you went to a store that wholesales mannequins. Just be grateful that your experience didn't end with you being his new models in the basement. I laughed out loud. Okay, I've posted this a couple times before, but to this day I still have to just sit and think for a minute every time I remember this. It was 2014 or so in college and I had a statistics class. We worked in groups and I always had this other girl at the table with me. Didn't have much of an impression of her because we didn't talk much. But randomly one day she asked me what I thought of legalizing weed. It took me back because I really hadn't talked to her much up until this point. Plus it's a loaded question even if we were in college. All I said back was, "Well, I don't see much wrong with it," and tried to leave it at that. She comes back at me and says, "I definitely think it should be legal because the THC kills off brain cells. So if it's legal that means more people will smoke it and everyone will get more dumb. Then because I'll choose not to smoke it, everyone will become dumber than me and it'll mean I become more successful than everyone else." I literally could not respond. I don't think I ever talked to her again, nor did I want to after that. Dumber. Did she really use the word dumber? The question is, how does she spell dumber? Not only that, but they admitted they were wrong to make a policy against kneeling but refused to mention Kaepernick by name in the statement, probably because of pending litigation. I was at the funeral for my dad, who unfortunately passed before his parents, my grandparents, did. Oma, grandmother, is very sad and goes up to pay her last respects. As she comes back, she's crying, and she reaches out for my sister's hand and grips it tightly. She says, "Ach, his hands are so cold, so cold." My sister, "Don't worry, Oma, he'll be warm soon." She may have been thinking of the afterlife like Dante, who saw heaven as the warm place with the light of God on everyone, and hell as becoming increasingly cold as you go further down. You're giving her far too much credit. You can't email me the document. I need you to fax it to me because it has to be original. There are so many places that require only faxed copies of documents and won't accept scanned copies in an email. Looking at you, Con Edison. Uck you and your proof of residence requirements. I just use a service that will take an email and turn it into a fax now, but it still pisses me off. Uck you, Con Edison. Join our community Discord, link in description. Honors chemistry in senior year of high school. Working on our final project needed to add NaCl to something. Girl spends 10 minutes tearing lots of potentially dangerous chemicals off of the chemical storeroom shelves because she can't find a beaker with NaCl. I point out the box of table salt and say, "Let's use that." She berates me for being so stupid to think to use table salt. Except that's literally what she was looking for. I still don't know what to say to that one, except that now she's a surgeon. Well, she's got the surgeon's arrogance. That seems to be the only real qualification. Scary thing is you're more right than should be. Mum's an old nurse and told off many doctors that were bone stupid and should have killed more people, but the staff usually caught their mistakes. But they never admitted a mistake. To be fair, table salt contains anti-caking agents and often iodine, so it's not exactly the same as NaCl. But if that's what she was thinking, she would have said no. That's not pure salt. If that would have even mattered for that experiment, rather than calling you a dummy. A colleague calling her own son of a BCH. A friend's mom told me a story about that back in middle school. She'd called her son of a BCH and he just spat back, "You're right." They both started laughing and it ended the argument. She's good people. Me and my dad were joking and he called me a son of a BCH and I responded with, "So who's a BCH?" I work with a woman who is very difficult to get along with, to say the least. Her oldest son is about 11. from a previous relationship than his younger brother, who is 7 or so, who was fathered by the man she's currently with. The oldest son has very high functioning autism, and also happens to have a large fascination with insects and insect related fields. I remember once I was closing down the store I manage with her and she told me this tidbit of info about her oldest son's fascination with insects. I admitted that while I'm not fond of insects myself, that it was neat that he liked them so much, and that if that fascination is fostered properly he could use that to his advantage and become a great biologist, or whatever it's called when you specifically study insects. It's a big field and he could leave a huge mark on it like Temple Grandin did for cattle production. She looked me dead in the face and said, "No, bugs are disgusting and he's weird for liking them so much. His brother like normal things. Why can't he like normal things?" I almost cried, dudes. I wish this r/Thathapan post, but it's not. She just flat said that shit to me. Needless to say, I, and everyone else at the store I manage, really dislikes her. Entomologist. That's the science bug specialist's name. I once, during what they call a mental health crisis, called the non-emergency doctor's number at around 3 AM. After speaking to them for a little while they said the doctor would call me back. 45 minutes later I got a call from the doctor. I explained that I was desperate and wasn't sure what I would do if I didn't get help and that I was so afraid I couldn't make it to a hospital on my own. The new antidepressants I'd been put on were making me hallucinate and so terrified I hadn't slept in a few days. The doctor replied, "If you can't get to the hospital, that's not our responsibility. You could call an ambulance, but you doing so would be a waste of resources even if you do plan on killing yourself if you can't get immediate help," and hung up the phone. The doctor should have his license revoked. The whole point of being in mental health practice is to keep you alive no matter what that looks like. Please know that you are worth saving. Good luck with your journey. He probably thought it was the hypocritical oath rather than Hippocratic. Oh, Lord, welcome to the brave new world of dealing with mental health professionals. If you say black, they tell you it's white. If you say help me, they say screw you. If you say non-emergency, they say acute. The fucked up thing is if you were swearing you were fine, she'd have sent the cops to bring you in kicking and screaming. And you wouldn't get out until she says you have been cured. Knowing best is what they get high off of. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist. I'm right because I confused you. No, that's called being so wrong I don't know where to start. If I blew off my arm, would you let me put my nub in your butt? Fianke. What? I like girls so thin they look anorexic. Like I wanna see their ribs when I bend them over. Edited to add. Have your preference by all means, but man, that guy was disgusting. Yeah, people can have their preferences, but that's definitely not mine, lol. It probably wouldn't have been so bad if he wasn't a raging misogynist suckboy, but now he was. Never before have I stood up and left a room so abruptly. So this is a Wendy's. You know that the world doesn't revolve around you, right? My guidance counselor. I came to her 2 days in a row because I was extremely depressed. My guidance counselor called me into her office about the pregnancy rumors spreading about me. I thought she would help me deal with it socially. No. She asked if I was a virgin. I said yes. First year in high school. She proceeded to tell me she didn't believe me and if I want to have sex I need to know that people will talk. She ended with handing me a condom and telling me to be safe, dear. We all care about you. We all love you enough to judge you, sweetie. I used to have a friend with whom I had a 3-hour-long discussion about physics-related questions which he asked me. The questions all revolved around gravity in some way. At first, I thought he was genuinely interested in this topic. After 2.5 hours, I suddenly found myself googling papers that discussed gravitational waves and stuff like that goes way over my head. So by then I got suspicious and asked him that if he wasn't willing to accept my answer, what would he think the answer is then? Flat Earth. I blocked his behind. My great grandma recently passed away. While we were all walking by the coffin and crying and mourning, my grandpa, her son, says to my crying grandmother, "This'll be us too." Next, I just turned and stared at him with my mouth open. Who the hell says that to his mourning wife within earshot of all the family and 2 feet away from his deceased mother? People grieve differently. He's trying to come to terms with his own mortality. This isn't that bad. He insensitive at most. I can appreciate the idea, but the question was something that left me speechless, and it did. I'm sure I left some of my relatives without words when my grandfather died. I was maybe 12 at the time. For some reason I got a hold of those sugar stick fake cigarettes. Mimed smoking them when everyone was viewing the body, like pretending to puff out smoke and all. That's coming up on 20 years ago now. Still keeps me up at night from time to time. I was having a debate with my cousin on feminism and women rights. After stating many facts and showing him articles as sources, his response was, well, if it all sucked so much, why didn't women do anything about it? I was once arguing with a second cousin who's a hardcore MRA, and he kept saying that men have always been the oppressed ones because they had to live through wars, plagues, famines, and other historical hardships, as if those things didn't directly impact women. Too, it's like he believed that women were a recent invention. This happened around a decade ago at a work Christmas party, when entirely unprovoked, one of my colleagues said my little boy really likes going to Seaside Town because there's no black people there, and didn't see anything wrong with what she said or why we were asking her why she said it. Literally no reason why whatsoever. She was in her 20s, so it wasn't an age thing or early onset dementia or any other reason behind it. She just wanted to say it and felt like at a Christmas party whilst looking at our menus was the best time to say it. Oh, I'm so sorry. That sound awful. I didn't know your son was racist. At a tournament where a player got 3 complaints lodged against himself for offensive behavior, told me, the judge, that it was my fault that they couldn't take a joke. Yes, you read that right. He blamed the judges for other players getting offended. My ex-hubby was always right. No matter what, no matter the situation. This caused lots of problems for us, and of course, he's now an ex, but I had told the family counselor this and the counselor did not quite believe me. She suggested that I might be exaggerating just a little bit. That was in a private session. The next time we were in a couples session, I asked my ex point blank, in the 15 years we have been together, do you think it might be possible that you were wrong about something? His response was, since I always use logic to reason out an answer, I highly doubt I have ever been wrong. It was validating seeing the counselor's eye pop out of her head, and then she spent the rest of our session trying to argue that nobody is 100% right 100% of the time. Yeah, my dear. Feel my pain. Thank you. The marriage is over. Moving on. I was talking to someone about historical punishments in American prisons related to my job at the time, and one guy kept insisting that all of them were justified because they were being used on criminals. I brought up one case where a man died while in, essentially, a torture device for talking out of turn, which eventually led to the prison discontinuing that method of punishment. The guy said, I think they should have kept using it. It's not so much that I was speechless, it's just that everything I could have said would have definitely gotten me fired. So I turned on my heel and walked away. You shouldn't microwave water. It takes the oxygen out. The different time zones is due to the theory of relativity, right? LOL. You just can't predict stupid sometimes. Ah yes. Scrudinger's idiot. Clearly you don't really care about me. This was after I gave this person everything I had to better their situation and get themselves on solid ground. Thousands of dollars for this and that. Hours, days and weeks of my time. All my energy and effort went into helping them out until I got to a point where I had nothing left to give and told them no about one thing after saying yes and giving them whatever they wanted for months before that point. None of what I'd done mattered or even happened as far as they were concerned at that point. All they saw was me saying no, and that was enough to completely turn on me and treat me like I don't even exist. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.